A white cotton t-shirt sits on a shelf. Plain, simple, unremarkable. The fabric cost about $2. The stitching, another dollar. Shipping, packaging, maybe three more. Total production cost, somewhere around $8 to $10. But slap a certain logo on the chest, hang it under the right lighting, place it behind a glass door with a security guard outside. And suddenly, that same shirt costs $500. This is not an exaggeration. This is the luxury industry in its purest, most profitable form. And it is one of the most brilliantly engineered business models in the history of commerce. Every year, the global luxury goods market generates over $350 billion in revenue. Not because the products are $350 billion better than their alternatives, but because luxury brands have mastered something far more valuable than manufacturing. They have mastered the manufacturing of desire. They have built systems, psychological, social, and economic, that convince millions of otherwise rational human beings to pay 50 times the production cost for a product and feel grateful for the privilege. This is not about fashion. This is not about taste. This is about one of the most sophisticated pricing architectures ever constructed. And today, we are going to dismantle it, piece by piece, to understand exactly how luxury brands make you pay $500 for something worth $10. Let us begin with a question most people never think to ask. What does a luxury product actually cost to make? In 2016, The Economist reported that an equity analyst at Exane, BNP Paribas, estimated the production cost of a basic Hermes Birkin bag at roughly $800. The retail price starting at around $10,000 and climbing to over $300,000 for rare editions. That is a markup of more than 10 times the production cost, at minimum. And Hermes is not even the most aggressive example. A luxury fragrance that retails for $250 often contains between $3 and $8 worth of actual ingredients. The bottle, the cap, the packaging, those cost more than the liquid inside. A pair of high-end sunglasses from a prestige brand, many of which are manufactured by the same Italian conglomerate, might cost $15 to $20 to produce. Retail price, $300, $400, sometimes $500. So what are you paying for? You are not paying for cotton. You are not paying for leather. You are not paying for glass or metal or thread. You are paying for a story. You are paying for a carefully constructed narrative that transforms raw materials into symbols. Symbols of status, taste, achievement, and identity. The luxury industry understood something long before behavioral economists gave it a name. It could show that human beings do not evaluate products based on their material composition. We evaluate them based on what they mean. And meaning, unlike cotton, can be manufactured at almost zero marginal cost. In traditional economics, when the price of a product goes up, demand goes down. This is one of the most fundamental laws of market behavior. But luxury brands operate in a parallel economic universe, one where this law runs in reverse. In the late 19th century, an economist named Thorstein Veblen observed something peculiar about the spending habits of the wealthy. He noticed that certain goods became more desirable precisely because they were expensive. The high price was not a barrier to purchase. It was the reason for purchase. He called it this conspicuous consumption. And the category of goods that defies normal price-demand relationships now bears his name, Veblen goods. A Rolex does not become less attractive when its price increases by 20%. It becomes more attractive. A Louis Vuitton bag does not lose appeal when it crosses the $5,000 mark. It gains mystique. This is the Veblen paradox, and luxury brands exploit it with surgical precision. They understand that in the luxury market, price is not a reflection of cost. Price is a feature. It is part of the product itself. When you buy a $3,000 jacket, you are not just buying warmth and fabric. You are buying the ability to signal, to the world and to yourself, that you can afford a $3,000 jacket. The price tag is not incidental. It is instrumental. This is why luxury brands almost never discount. A sale at Louis Vuitton would not increase sales. It would destroy the very thing customers are paying for. The perception of exclusivity. Discounting in luxury is not a strategy. It is suicide. If high prices are the first pillar of the luxury pricing architecture, then artificial scarcity is the second. And no brand has mastered this strategy more completely than Hermes. You cannot simply walk into an Hermes boutique and buy a Birkin bag. It does not matter if you have the money. It does not matter if you are ready to pay full retail price right now in cash. The answer is almost always no. To even be considered for the privilege of purchasing a Birkin, you must first establish a purchase history with the brand. You must buy belts, scarves, shoes, perfume, thousands of dollars in secondary products before a sales associate might, at their discretion, offer you the chance to buy the bag you actually wanted. This is not a supply chain problem. This is a deliberate strategy. Hermes controls production volumes with extreme precision. Trust me. They release a limited number of Birkins per year. Estimates range from 12,000 to 70,000, far below the global demand. And the result is extraordinary. A product that costs roughly $800 to $1,400 to produce retails for $10,000 and up, and then appreciates on the secondary market, where Birkins routinely sell for 2 to 3 times their retail price. The bag has outperformed the stock market. It has outperformed gold. But this strategy is not unique to Hermes. Supreme built an entire streetwear empire on weekly limited drops. Ferrari caps annual production to preserve exclusivity. Rolex maintains waiting lists that stretch for months, sometimes years. The mechanism is always the same. Create a gap between supply and demand, and let human psychology do the rest. Because when something is hard to get, we do not question the price. We question whether we are worthy of the product. If you are starting to see the invisible architecture behind the prices you pay, the psychology, the scarcity, the carefully engineered desire, then you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for. Titan Codex breaks down the hidden systems behind the world's most powerful business empires. If that is the kind of content that sharpens your thinking, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next episode might change how you see an industry you interact with every single day. Walk into a luxury boutique and pay attention, not to the products, but to the environment. Notice the lighting, soft, warm, angled, to make every surface glow. Notice the spacing. Products are displayed with enormous gaps between them, as if each item occupies its own private gallery. Notice the scent. Most luxury stores diffuse a signature fragrance through their ventilation systems. Notice the music, always curated, always at precisely the right volume to suggest sophistication without intrusion. None of this is accidental. Every sensory detail in a luxury retail space is engineered to achieve one objective: to make you feel like you have entered a different world. A world where ordinary concerns about cost and practicality do not apply. A world where spending $500 on a t-shirt feels not just reasonable, but natural. Behavioral economists call this the framing effect, the principle that the context in which a decision is presented dramatically alters the decision itself. A $500 shirt in a fluorescent-lit warehouse feels absurd. The same shirt in a marble-floored atelier with a personal stylist offering you sparkling water feels like an investment. Luxury brands also deploy a technique called price anchoring with devastating effectiveness. That $20,000 handbag in the center display case is not necessarily there because the store expects to sell it. It is there to make the $5,000 bag next to it look like a reasonable choice. The anchor resets your internal price calibration. Suddenly, $5,000 does not feel like a lot. It feels like a deal. And Tiffany understood this at a molecular level. Their signature robin egg blue box became so synonymous with luxury that the company trademarked the color itself. The box became the product. The jewelry inside was almost secondary. Here is where the luxury pricing model crosses from clever marketing into something deeper, something almost existential. Luxury brands do not just sell products, they sell identities. When you buy a Gucci belt, you are not solving a functional problem. Your pants were not falling down. You are making a statement about who you are, or more precisely, about who you want to be perceived as. This is the most powerful engine in the luxury machine, the fusion of product and self-concept. Psychologists call it self-extension theory. The things we own become part of how we define ourselves. And luxury brands have built entire ecosystems designed to attach their symbols to your deepest aspirations. Consider the language luxury brands use in their advertising. They do not talk about thread count or tensile strength. They talk about legacy, heritage, craftsmanship, vision. They sell narratives of generational wealth, of timeless elegance, of belonging to a class that transcends the ordinary. And these narratives work because they tap into something fundamental about human social behavior: the desire for status. Evolutionary psychologists argue that status signaling is hardwired into our biology. In every human society ever studied, individuals seek ways to communicate their position within the social hierarchy. Luxury goods are the modern plumage. They are the peacock's tail of consumer capitalism, and the brands know it. They know that when a customer buys a $1,200 pair of sneakers, the customer is not evaluating the shoe. They are evaluating what the shoe says about them. The purchase is not transactional, it is transformational, at least in the customer's mind. And that perceived transformation is worth far more than any amount of Italian leather. Not everyone can afford a $10,000 handbag. Luxury brands know this, and rather than accepting this as a limitation, they engineered it into a strategy. It is called the aspirational pricing ladder, and it is one of the most profitable innovations in modern retail. Here is how it works. At the top of the pyramid sits the unattainable, the haute couture gown, the limited edition watch, the bespoke piece that costs more than a car. These products exist not primarily to be sold, but to be seen. They are advertisements disguised as products. They set the tone, the dream, the aspiration. Below that sits the core luxury offering, the classic handbags, the signature jackets, the recognizable designs that cost thousands. These are the bread and butter of the luxury business: high margin, high volume, relative to haute couture, and deeply tied to brand identity. But the real genius is at the bottom of the pyramid: the entry-level luxury products, the $40 Burberry keychain, the $70 Gucci socks, the $150 Prada phone case. These products serve a very specific function. They allow people who cannot yet afford the core offering to buy into the brand, to carry a piece of the dream, to feel even for a moment that they belong. And once they are in, the ladder does its work. The keychain leads to the wallet leads to the belt leads to the bag. Each purchase reinforces the customer's identity as a luxury consumer and pulls them toward the next rung. This is not speculation. LVMH, the parent company of Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, and over 70 other brands, is the largest luxury conglomerate in the world with a market capitalization that has exceeded $400 billion. Their business model depends entirely on this ladder functioning exactly as designed. Luxury brands spend billions on marketing every year, but here is the paradox. The most effective luxury marketing does not look like marketing at all. It looks like culture. When Chanel sponsors an art exhibition, that is marketing. When Louis Vuitton commissions a collaboration with a contemporary artist, that is marketing. When Prada funds an independent film festival, that is marketing. But none of it feels like marketing. It feels like patronage. It feels like taste. It feels like an invitation into a world that most people only glimpse from the outside. This is the principle of aspiration without accessibility. The message is never buy this product. The message is, this is the world you could belong to if you are worthy. Celebrity endorsements in the luxury space function differently than in mass market advertising. When a fast food chain hires a celebrity, the message is simple. This product is popular. When a luxury brand dresses a celebrity, the message is far more nuanced. This person has arrived. And this brand is part of what arrival looks like. The brand borrows the celebrity's status. The celebrity borrows the brand's heritage. Both gain from the exchange. And social media has introduced an entirely new dimension to this machinery. Luxury brands now cultivate armies of micro-influencers who post aspirational content featuring their products, not as paid advertisements, but as lifestyle documentation. The line between genuine preference and sponsored promotion has been deliberately blurred, because the blurring itself is the strategy. If it looks organic, it must be authentic. If it is authentic, it must be desirable. And if it is desirable, the price becomes irrelevant. But the luxury industry is not invincible. A growing wave of consumer awareness is beginning to erode some of the foundations on which luxury pricing depends. Younger consumers, particularly Generation Z, are asking uncomfortable questions. They want to know where their products are made, by whom, and under what conditions. They want to know why a t-shirt costs $500 when the factory worker who made it earns less in a month. They want to understand the environmental cost of producing exotic leather goods. And the internet has made the production cost of luxury goods increasingly transparent. Viral videos from factories in China and Southeast Asia have revealed the actual cost of materials and labor behind products that retail for thousands. The mystique is harder to maintain when the curtain has been pulled back. Luxury brands are responding, some genuinely, some performatively. Sustainability programs, transparent sourcing initiatives, carbon-neutral pledges, these are becoming standard marketing vocabulary across the industry. But the core pricing architecture remains intact. Because even as consumers become more informed, the psychological machinery still works. People still want status. People still want to signal success. People still want to feel like they belong to something exclusive. The products may evolve, the messaging may shift, but the fundamental transaction, paying a premium not for what something is, but for what it represents, that has not changed in centuries. And it is unlikely to change anytime soon. So here's the final question, the one that luxury brands hope you never ask. If a $500 t-shirt and a $20 t-shirt are made from the same cotton stitched with the same thread, and manufactured in facilities of comparable quality, what exactly are you paying for? The answer, when you strip away every layer of marketing, psychology, and social engineering, is remarkably simple. You are paying for the feeling of being seen, the feeling of belonging, the feeling of being someone who matters. And that feeling, it turns out, is the most expensive product in the world. It cannot be manufactured in a factory. It cannot be shipped in a box. It can only be created inside the mind of the consumer. And luxury brands have spent decades learning exactly how to put it there. This does not make luxury goods evil. It does not make the people who buy them foolish. What it does is reveal something profound about the relationship between commerce and identity in the modern world. We live in an economy that has learned to monetize our deepest insecurities, our need for status, our fear of insignificance, our desire to be recognized. Luxury brands did not invent these needs, but they have built the most elegant, most profitable system ever devised for converting those needs into revenue. The next time you see a price tag that seems impossible to justify, remember, the price was never meant to be justified. It was meant to be felt. And if you found this breakdown of the luxury machine as fascinating as I did, you will want to watch our deep dive into how Nike built a $60 billion empire by selling identity, not sneakers. That story reveals the exact same playbook, deployed at mass market scale, and it will change how you look at every brand you interact with.